Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Throne of Steel episode number 138 based on novel. So let's start. A demon god's external spiritual energy was certainly great, but against the attack of a weapon of epic tier, his defense was insufficient to guard him from being wounded. But although Crocell sustained some damage, he still smoothly escaped. The other 8 clones were holding him, and as each of them was similar, True Body blended in with them before they quickly separated and rapidly departed. Long Houchen narrowed his eyes, snorting in disdain. Suddenly shutting his eyes, he executed a swinging motion with the aria of the Goddess of Light in his right hand, as a red glow flew out from it, shaped like a sort of eye. In the meantime, a golden figure appeared on Long Houchen's back, linking with him. In the meantime it shot a white ray, and the red glow went chasing after one of the 9 demon gods of clear vision, thus sifting the one from the many. You forgot that knights have an ability called lock, and the so-called Saint Spiritual Stove. Long Houchen's resonant voice reverberated through the Tower of Eternity. That red light very rapidly landed on Crocell's body. And then, that white ray turned into a bridge between Long Houchen and him. Stamping his right feet against the ground, Long Houchen burst out once again, this time shining with a scarlet light. He was already sensing that the time of his fusion with Haoyue was passing very fast, and that this ultimate form could not be maintained for many attacks. He had to kill the enemy within a short span of time, otherwise his only way left to him would be to escape. Sacrifice, an ability that Long Houchen had not used for a long time, was finally employed. With great surprise, he found out that the same sacrifice ability this time carried a far more powerful amplification than the former times. This was due to the increase of his external and internal spiritual energy. And with the increased toughness of his body, more of his latent capabilities as God's chosen one came out. The sacrifice ability also carried great stimulating effects on him. The aria of the Goddess of Light, and Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light, both let blade projections burst out. The condensed spiritual highland made them look no different from real blades, and the terrible spiritual energy led the 2 divine swords to let out light buzzing sounds. A resonant dragon chant could be heard from above Long Houchen's body. He didn't pay attention to the other 8 clones and put all his focus on the demon god's main body. A golden light dragon rushed out. The 2 divine swords were like the 2 dazzlingly shining eyes of the dragon. Retribution Knight ability, Ascending Dragon Strike. As Ascending Dragon Strike looked about to hit Crocell, the 9 clones had twisting facial expressions. Immediately, the effects from Lock and the Saint Spiritual Stove used by Long Houchen alongside Ascending Dragon Strike suddenly changed direction, aiming for a clone on the lateral side. Bang! The 9 of them being one, Crocell staggered back. Although his 8 clones didn't manage to puzzle Long Houchen, he swiftly shifted his main body in the last instant, containing Long Houchen's attack to some extent. Even so, in sacrifice mode, Long Houchen was far too powerful. The superposition of his various boosts could only be described as terrifying. By chance, Crocell's left hand had already regained its ability of movement at that time. Although it felt stiff in comparison to the right arm, one more arm was always good to have in such a battle. Dodge, flash. Long Houchen's offense broke out instantly. As his comprehension in the sword intent gradually deepened, he was already assimilating his sword intent into his technical abilities. Used through his 2 ultimate holy swords, any ability gained a really terrible power. 2 shining solar strikes followed, 1 orange, 1 greenish-blue. 2 ardent miniaturized suns could be seen appearing in mid-air, just like meteors catching up with the moon, about to land on Crocell. Crocell gripped his pair of long blades with full force. Dark blue glows mixed with his darkness elemental spiritual energy, taking the shape of a thick sort of shield serving as an extension of his blades, glowing in dark blue. Bang! As 2 violent explosions sounded out, Crocell drew back, feeling as if electrocuted. On each of his 2 long blades, a large gap had appeared in the middle. The boundless sword intent surging out along with his spiritual energy left drizzles of deep green and orange on his body. Crocell raised his head and spouted a mouthful of dark blue blood in front of Long Houchen. Inside his blood were mixed a large amount of orange and dark green spiritual energy, producing puffing sounds in the air. From that spurt of blood could be seen the destructive power held by Houchen's sword intent. It was already invading Crocell's body. Long Houchen was not so kind as to spare the enemy at this point. His purplish golden figure stuck close to the ground as he kind of glided, chasing after Crocell in a flash. His blades were waved up together to launch demon wiping flash, shooting countless light rays towards Crocell. The demon god's face was already very pale. With an angry shout, his body crouched down abruptly, And then, a pitch-black ray burst out from his forehead, covering his body like a dome. In the midst of a succession of ear-piercing sounds, that dome became in a disastrous state. But mystically, it maintained the same shape, except that it was now tattered, and Crocell abruptly rushed out from inside, sweeping his long blade with full force at Long Houchen. In Crocell's capacity as the demon god of clear vision, he obviously could see that Long Houchen's extraordinary state couldn't be maintained for a long time. Therefore, all this time he stayed on the defensive, only trying to drag it out. Long Houchen would inevitably collapse at some point. But he very rapidly found out that such a method won't do. A totally passive defense let Long Houchen display his offensive prowess, which he actually couldn't resist. Therefore, after using a secret technique to resist Houchen's demon-wiping flash, Crocell immediately launched a counteroffensive, using attack as his best defense. But as Crocell expected to counterattack, he didn't expect Long Houchen's next move. Originally about to keep attacking, Long Houchen suddenly sprinted backwards, turning into a stream of light. Even when used to retreat, lightning flash reached an enormous speed. And just like that, Crocell's attack landed on the air. With a resonant dragon cry, a deep green gigantic dragon rushed out from Long Houchen's left hand. Still in the middle of his attack, Crocell didn't have the time to adapt to that, and a series of attacks from Long Houchen pressured him far too greatly. And, due to getting locked by Long Houchen, he was not even able to evade. In an intense explosion, Crocell's pair of long blades were fractured. Although they didn't reach the epic tier, they were not far from this boundary. But Long Houchen's series of attacks destroyed them, inflicting Crocell with great pain. But a weapon was after all a weapon. Even if broken, the blades still had a half of their original size. So Crocell didn't throw them away, and transferred his energy inside to try to get out of the predicament before his eyes. The force of impact from this dark green gigantic dragon caused the demon god of clear vision to once again spurt blood. This time, to his horror, the gigantic dragon wrapped around his body, causing him to be unable to move for a moment with a powerful binding force. Dual Binding Dragon of Light and Rain, the ability attached to Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light. After waiting patiently for this opportunity, Long Houchen finally landed a decisive blow. After the series of blows and impairments, Long Houchen believed that Crocell would not have enough strength to stop his last attack. His two swords separating to his sides, Long Houchen breathed deeply. His last bits of spiritual energy in sacrifice mode instantly gathered in a mixture of deep green and orange colors, abruptly gaining in brilliance. Instant Blast Crosscut. Instant Blast Crosscut was a really ordinary ability among those of the Retribution Knights that he learnt. But when used it through the two divine swords in his hands, it turned into something deep, something magical, letting the two swords match harmoniously. This was the first time Long Houchen had such effects when using it. In the past, he had tried to use all his abilities alongside his dual swords, but as a matter of fact, his temporarily current level of cultivation was the minimum required to reach a perfect level of harmonization between Instant Blast Crosscut and the two divine swords. Two dazzling light rays glistened at the same time, filled with powerful spiritual highland mixing in the air. Just like a heavenly music, it reverberated in the air. The aria of the Goddess of Light, and Blue Rain, Hibiscus of Light harmonized once again, scattering the dark blue light. Just like the first ray of morning light illuminating the horizon, water and light became one, spreading their breath of life. This strike seemed to be seeking the origins of the mysteries of life. The unhurried blue light was integrated fully into Instant Blast Crosscut, piercing lightly into Demon God of Clear Vision's chest. Along with the increase of his strength and gain in comprehension, Long Houchen's last strike became far more advanced than all the previous ones. Crocell, who used to be struggling with his whole force, suddenly came to a stop. His look turned sluggish, then Dual Binding Dragon of Light and Rain, or rather it should now be called Binding Jade Dragon of Light and Rain, slowly let its binding loose. Bang! Countless blue dots of light burst out from within Crocell's body. The light of dawn came out, lighting the darkness in a flash, and scattering and slashing his whole body. Right at this time, the completely out of strength Long Houchen fell to the ground completely ruined. Haiyue also came out from him, immediately returning to his own world. Yating also entered Long Houchen's body. His ultimate state had been maintained for so long, with Yating providing boosts all this time. The pair of divine swords in Long Houchen's hands had already lost all their gloss, and he didn't even have the strength to put them back inside his own body. But Long Houchen didn't look more relaxed because of seeing Crocell's body burst. On the contrary, his expression became filled with intense shock. "You didn't expect that, right, human?" Crocell's voice sounded full of ridicule. From his tattered body came out a body only half a meter tall. Right, because Crocell's aura hadn't disappeared, Long Houchen didn't let down his guard. The current situation went totally out of his expectations. Crocell clearly died, but how come a miniaturized version of him appeared? Only a half-meter tall, that figure also had 6 wings at its back. His head was awfully large, nearly seeming to be half his whole body, and the top of his head was covered in sparse yellow hair. His eyes were pale white, and his limbs very small. As for the body, it contrasted completely with the enormous head. His yellow teeth let off a stinky smell, and dim black fog unceasingly rose around his body. On his body were at least a dozen deep scars where the bones were visible. The huge head was even crooked to a bad angle, making visible the squirming larvae-like nerves within. That was a really nauseous sight, especially his voice, which turned extremely hoarse. It was like listening to a crow. Long Houchen looked blankly at this unidentified creature, speechless for a moment. The small nasty creature let out a laugh. I'm the demon god of clear vision. Or more accurately speaking, this is my real body. Within the 72 demon gods, my strength isn't much, but my ability of survival is definitely among the best. What you killed was only my parasitic body. Speaking of which, nurturing this one parasitic body was really difficult. I had needed to find the perfect human body to fit my satisfactions. Afterwards, I used up several years to thoroughly occupy it. Furthermore, I had expended great efforts to transfer over 90% of my strength to the parasitic body. However, that time of trouble was really worthwhile. At least I got such a perfect body and a second life. Your previous ability was really terrifying, possibly able to compare with the top 36 demon gods. Unfortunately, it only killed a parasitic body. From your voice, you should be quite a young one. I hope you have handsome enough looks. As you have just used the sacrifice ability, surely you must find it difficult to lift even one finger. Quickly take off that mask for me to see. If I am satisfied, although your soul will be erased, at least your body will become one with me. That will be your greatest honor. Reaching this point, Crocell couldn't help but laugh out loudly. But his laughter was extremely grim and merciless. He hated Long Houchen bitterly. Raising a parasitic body was extremely difficult, yet that one was destroyed. To recover his original strength, he'd need at least 5 years. And even so, his vigor would plummet greatly. Recovering it would necessitate a total of 10 years. So now that Crocell had the complete advantage, he wasn't hurried in the slightest to kill Long Houchen, but wanted to torment him. He wasn't going to leave the matter at that. Long Houchen seemed very afraid, and slightly trembling. Letting go of Blue Rain, hibiscus of light, he raised his hand slowly, taking off his mask. At the very moment, he indeed found it strenuous to even lift his hand. His fusion with Haoyue and sacrifice ability both heavily consumed his strength, and he was already at the end of the line. Yating and Haoyue seemed to have entered deep slumber in a weakened state, and the 4 holy guards didn't dare appear in front of Crocell. Now, he seemed to have reached a dead end. Taking off the mask was quite difficult, and it revealed Long Houchen's pale, but incomparably handsome face. Scion of Light was a perfectly suited title. Originally, the face of the demon god of clear vision's parasitic body was already handsome, but differed by ages compared to Long Houchen. Be it in terms of looks or demeanor, it was an earth-shattering gap. Seeing Long Houchen's handsome face, Crocell was dumbfounded. His previous rage immediately turned into ecstasy. With his clear vision force, he naturally could see that Long Houchen's body was 100-fold higher quality than his previous parasitic body. His manner and body are so perfect. If I can take him as my own parasitic body, then maybe the need for 5 years of effort is worth it. As Crocell was close to dancing and gesticulating for joy and excitement, a sparkling orange bolt was shot at him without warning. That orange radiance reached such a magnificence that it seemed close to a rainbow in the sky, instantly running through Crocell's head. His look of excitement abruptly turned lifeless. After swaying a few steps back, he toppled to the ground. What pierced his head was exactly the aria of the goddess of light. The elegant radiance coming out from this divine sword was the imposing orange luster of the epic tear. Long Houchen's body directly fell to the ground, paralyzed and gasping with his mouth opening large. The golden foundation armor's front pieces were already full of sweat, and at the very moment, he was weak to the extent of being unable to lift a single finger. But his eyes were still unwaveringly fixed onto Crocell's body, until a dark blue crown came out from within his body. At the time it flew out frantically to the side, Long Houchen finally loosened his breath. The appearance of the demon god crown meant that the demon god of clear vision Crocell was finally dead. Your prowess actually went beyond my expectations. truly deserving to be called one of the 72 demon gods. Long Houchen said with a sigh. He was unable to move, but could still speak. This previous battle caused him an intense emotional stirring. Although he didn't sustain heavy wounds, the level of danger even exceeded the time of Cai's awakening as a god's chosen one. At that time, Houchen could at least control the time of their departure through the eternal melody. But right now, he was really at the end of the line. Crocell was really too vicious. His body was actually a parasitic carcass with the true body hidden inside. At the crucial timing, it was able to escape from within, which was something Long Houchen absolutely didn't expect. No one, not even those other demon gods, knew about this ability of Crocell. When Long Houchen saw Crocell remain still alive, he truly became quite desperate. He could sense his strength at that time. The death of the parasitic body weakened him enormously and his main body sustained damage as well. In terms of spiritual energy, Crocell reached at most the 7th step of cultivation. Having lost 90% of his strength, he was extremely weakened. In particular, his body had degenerated very seriously due to parasitizing another's body, his external spiritual energy having come close to zero. But such a Crocell was more than enough against Long Houchen in a state weakened to the extent of being unable to move at all. In this crucial moment of life or death, Long Houchen calmed himself down to the greatest extent. He knew that he had only one chance, which would be his true last chance. Crocell relaxed because Long Houchen's body state had totally loosened. With his ability as demon god of clear vision, he could totally see through Long Houchen's state of weakness, which is why he didn't stand on guard in the slightest. Long Houchen took off his mask to create the best opportunity for himself. Although Crocell was at that time in a very weak state, in case his last attack was resisted, he had no chance of living on. His overdrafted and exhausted spiritual energy already left him without a way out against the enemy. He didn't even dare teleport out. In such a weak state, if the eternal melody performed a teleportation, it may possibly cause time-space to tear his body to shreds. Indeed, as Long Houchen expected, Crocell needed a new body after losing his previous parasitic one. At the time he saw Long Houchen's looks, his surge of excitement made his vigilance at the lowest. This was just the time Long Houchen launched his attack. Holy Flora-Ison, a powerful amplifying ability of Retribution Knight. Through his mental force, Long Houchen separated Holy Flora-Ison in two, one part for arousing the aria of the Goddess of Light, and the other one to serve as his driving force. That's how he pierced through Crocell's head, finishing him off in one blow. Where did Holy Flora-Ison come from? At the very moment, Long Houchen was extremely thankful for Sheng Yu. This ability was indeed stored thanks to the ability Raise Flowers into Trees handed down through Sheng Yu's family in the Assassin Temple. Long Houchen had it stored for a long time already, for a possible time of need. Raise Flowers into Trees also had restrictions as a too powerful ability couldn't be stored, otherwise it would risk wounding his body. Holy Flora-Ison was the most useful ability Long Houchen could choose. It came with a massive cost of spiritual energy, and serving for movement and strength amplification, was possibly able to catch the enemy off guard. So therefore, Raise Flowers into Trees was the ability he stored inside his body in normal times. He didn't expect today to be the day that the ability stored thanks to Raise Flowers into Trees would save his life. Crocell's ultimate trump came very promptly, but the fact he didn't choose to directly kill Long Houchen was a grave mistake. This victory was very lucky. Crocell's last plot was at the verge of success. Recalling about the previous move, Long Houchen was still full of lingering fears. The 72 demon gods are indeed not such easy opponents. That's only the 49th ranked. How about the higher ranked ones? What was the extent of their capabilities? Long Houchen still remembered very deeply about the feeling of helplessness he had in front of the demon god of death Saminaga. If not for Saminaga's unfortunate encounter with the Tower of Eternity, he could very well be already dead. Pondering about that painful experience, Long Houchen slowly shut his eyes. His body's overdraft needed time for recovery, and the same went for the spiritual energy in his body. Crocell having already died, he had plenty of time to recover. As for that demon god crown, how far it could run is a wonder. This place being the Tower of Eternity, no living being could escape out of his own wall without Long Houchen's teleportating ability. Unless the demon god crown could reach the level of divine tool, it didn't have the slightest chance. Therefore, Long Houchen wasn't worried in the slightest. Just let it hit a wall sooner or later after escaping in great hurry. Resting for a full half hour, Long Houchen finally had the energy to stand. Taking a few physical force recovery pills made by Lin Xin, he once again returned to the state of cultivation to recuperate his spiritual energy. One had to admit that the Golden Foundation armor could stand at the epic tier without qualms. During this period of rest, Long Houchen's Golden Foundation armor transformed a large amount of light essence into spiritual energy. At the current time, he just got started cultivating, and was immediately able to transfer a large amount of spiritual energy to supplement his own body. A short time later, over 30,000 spiritual energy was back in his body. It was just that due to his state of weakness, he still needed a period of rest. With a leap, Long Houchen stretched his body with force. Although the state of weakness was uncomfortable, his joy from slaughtering a demon god put him in a very good mood. The demon god of Clear Vision's demon god crown was still running around in the first floor of the Tower of Eternity, but all darkness essence was dried up, to the extent that not a speck of a single bloodstain remained around his body. The Tower of Eternity even distributed a large amount of light essence toward Long Houchen to absorb. Speaking of it, it was also a winner. The soul of a demon god was a great gift for the tower. Not in a rush to grab that demon god crown, Long Houchen shut his eyes, and connected through his blood contract to Hao Yue. The latter was already on the verge of evolving. If he could gain the energy from the demon god crown, it would surely be extremely beneficial for his evolving process. In a purple flash, Hao Yue reappeared inside the Tower of Eternity. Because of the previous fusion he had with Long Houchen, he had an extremely tired expression. Hao Yue, you can absorb it. Long Houchen pointed at the demon god crown in the sky. Hao Yue's 5 large heads were immediately filled with excited looks. Little Light raised his head, and puffed a thin purple light toward the demon god crown. Immediately, that crown running amok calmed down, and was absorbed in front of Little Light in the blink of an eye. Little Light opened his mouth wide, swallowing it inside. In the meantime, Hao Yue spread these thoughts to Long Houchen. Master, I cannot absorb it for the moment. After I recover to my optimal state, I'll need your help. Naturally, he understood the meaning behind his words. After making a breakthrough, Hao Yue needed his protection. Having learned the lesson from the previous experience, Hao Yue contained himself, at the very brink of evolving, trying to cut down the time of evolution to the greatest extent. But it was still dangerous to a certain extent, which is why having Long Houchen's protection was naturally the best. Okay. When my strength is replenished, I will immediately help you complete your evolution. Hao Yue's 5 heads were rubbed against Long Houchen softly. Right at that time, Little Light's golden eyes immediately had a look of amazement. His large heads gathering together towards Long Houchen opened their mouth and stretched forward pink tongues. Long Houchen thought Hao Yue wanted to lick him and immediately stepped down with a laugh. But very rapidly, his expression changed into surprise, seeing a sparkling and translucent gem in Little Light's mouth. Inside it, faint dark blue waves were twinkling. This is... Long Houchen gave Hao Yue a puzzled look. Little Light didn't reply immediately, murmuring some incantation. A trail of light landed on Long Houchen's body, and in a flicker of light, the tired Yating was pulled out from Long Houchen's body by the trail of light. Hao Yue had such an ability? Long Houchen was surprised. Seeing Hao Yue, Yating still had some fears, but she very rapidly exclaimed upon seeing that gem on Hao Yue's tongue. Are you giving this to me? Thank you, Hao Yue. Yating took the delicate stone in her hand without reservation, excitingly moving close to Little Light's large head, and giving a kiss to his forehead. Because of his light attribute, Yating was the closest to Little Light among all Hao Yue's 5 heads. Yating, what's that thing? Long Houchen asked in surprise. Yating replied, should be that previous bad guy's. I'm really itching to assimilate it. Master, can I? It seems to be able to arouse the evolution of the Saint Spiritual Stove. Long Houchen was in exultation, then you should assimilate it as soon as possible. So Crocell actually left such a good thing. Long Houchen had great lingering fears for that ability Clear Vision's godly pull. If the Saint Spiritual Stove could gain a similar kind of ability, it would without doubt greatly enhance his group's future operations in demon territory. Yating laughed happily, thank you, Master. After that, she immediately changed into a flickering light, disappearing back inside Houchen's body. Hao Yue nodded to Long Houchen, changing into a purplish light rushing to his own world to have a rest. On the verge of a new breakthrough, he needed to raise his body to the optimum state. Long Houchen once again called out the 4 holy guards, having them tidy up Crocell's body, then had 11th freeze the corpse. Out of fear for his comrades' worry, he couldn't tarry any longer. Bringing Crocell's corpse along, the eternal melody flickered with golden light. Southeastern Fort. At this moment, the atmosphere in this one of the 6 great forts was visibly somewhat strange. The demon armies already retreated, only leaving outside the fortress a large amount of corpses. A lot were those of humans, but mostly they were from demons. Like in the previous battles, the southeastern fort should at that time sweep through the battlefield. But today was not the same. The sky was already dark, but the fort was brightly lit. They had enough forces prepared for that, but didn't show the intention of sweeping through the battlefields. The demons' circumstances afar off were also quite delicate. Their army was already withdrawn, but the 8 demon god pillars didn't move locations. Still twinkling brilliantly, the group of 7 demon gods under Paimon's lead was sticking close to their own pillars, looking at the southeastern fort from afar. The two parties were standing opposite from afar, no one showing the intention of withdrawing. This scene followed because of the joint disappearance of both Long Houchen and the demon god of clear vision Crocell. At that time, when Crocell had activated Clear Vision's godly pull on Long Houchen, the warrior temple's head Chiao Yonghao became aware of the bad situation and immediately launched a full-force attack from the temple's powerhouses at the demons. Chiao Yonghao already guessed Long Houchen's identity, and couldn't help but strike with full force. In case Clear Vision's godly pull succeeded, Long Houchen would be immediately surrounded by the 8 demon gods, which was almost a route of certain death. But when he led the warrior temple's powerhouses to meet the 7 demon gods head-on, he discovered with shock that Crocell had disappeared from their ranks. Making the association with the light from Clear Vision's godly pool that previously came to sight, Chiao Yonghao was immediately confused, because Paimon also looked to be at a loss. Therefore, as if the two sides had come to an agreement, the demons withdrew their armies, and Chiao Yonghao led the warrior temple's powerhouses back into the fort, immediately inquiring of Wang Yuanyuan's group. They would obviously not tell him about the Tower of Eternity, only expressing that Long Houchen had a powerful teleporting equipment which resonated strangely with Clear Vision's godly pull, giving birth to that unexpected scene. The details were omitted. Because of the link through the soul-binding chains, Wang Yuanyuan and the others sensed that Long Houchen was still in safety at the current time. But he was very possibly battling the demon god of clear vision Crocell. That's the 49th ranked demon god, so they were all in great states of impatience. Fortunately, the vitality sharing didn't keep persisting, so they could only wait in anxiety. An unexpected turn of events was undeterminable. After Chiao Yonghao reflected carefully, he naturally wouldn't retreat like that. And you only called that Golden Foundation Knight Provisional Saint Knight head, and didn't mention Long Houchen's name, but the efficient Chiao Yonghao became even more certain of his guess. The demon gods were the same. Crocell had disappeared alongside the enemy knight, and as the southeastern fort was not shrouded in darkness, they could watch even more clearly than the humans. Also, they could only wait without any information on the situation. Time passed minute after minute. Paimon occasionally turned his head toward Paimon's demon god pillar, only to see it flicker without pause, in total stimulation. This meant that Crocell was fighting, and in a place where the demon god pillar's force couldn't be borrowed. As long as the demon god pillar was still lit, Crocell was surely still alive. The angel demon god Paimon and demon god of clear vision Crocell had very good relationships. And in particular, he was the one who instructed him to use clear vision's godly pull. Extremely anxious, he knew that Crocell's fighting prowess wasn't much, but he valued very importantly his special ability. With the assistance from Crocell's clear vision technique, they could be saved from much effort, be it regarding the deployment of their army or discovering enemy surprise attacks. As the two sides became more and more anxious as they kept waiting for the confirmation that their own side is all right, a change happened. The flashes of the demon god pillar of the demon god of clear vision Crocell suddenly accelerated, at a violent frequency that attracted both parties' attention. Chiao Yonghao opened his eyes wide. What he feared the most was to see Crocell return safely, Long Houchen having died in combat. Or maybe that Crocell would appear alongside Long Houchen on the demon side. So he already transmitted to the powerhouses from the warrior temple the order of being prepared at any time for another rush. Paimon was also astonished. His thoughts were exactly the opposite as Chiao Yonghao. The severe fluctuations of the demon god pillar proved that Crocell was having a tough battle. But as it was happening in another space, he had no way to help. The demon and human atmospheres became very strained, and right at that time, the demon god pillar of the demon god of clear vision Crocell suddenly lit up with full brilliance, a gaudy light that could be perceived clearly even from the southeastern fort. The other 7 demon god pillars immediately hid behind their own brilliances. That's right when Chiao Yonghao was prepared to go at any time, that suddenly flashing demon god pillar went extinct instantly and without warning. All light disappeared from it, it seemed to have become a totally ordinary stellar. Seeing the demon god of clear vision's pillar losing all its light, the two sides' momentum changed fiercely, and their powerhouses were all lifeless. After a short time of dull looks, the angel demon god immediately found that inconceivable. He absolutely didn't believe a Golden Foundation Knight to have actually killed Crocell, even if he had lost a great deal of force due to using clear vision's godly pull. He had his own reserves and should have rather ended up without suffering much damage. Golden Foundation Knights were ordinarily only at the 8th step, so what if that's one at the 9th step? Crocell's strength was very clear to his eyes. Relying on the clear vision ability, it was almost impossible for him to be defeated by an opponent of the same cultivation unless the enemy had his own domain. But in the previous battle, he could tell that Long Haochen was certainly a knight of the 8th step. On the other side, Jiu Yonghao also had a look of unbelief, but the difference from Paisun was that his unbelief was mostly filled with nice surprise. After so many years fighting against demons, he obviously knew the meaning of a demon god pillar's light going extinct. That meant the death of the bound demon god in combat. This was simply the best news they could get. For a moment, Jiu Yonghao couldn't help but exclaim loudly, "The demon god of clear vision Crocell has died in combat." Having received this notification, the whole southeastern fort immediately turned into a sea of pleasure. The cheering sounds rose and fell in succession, and although the warriors were extremely tired, their spirits were roused by the news. And for a moment, the powerhouses from the warrior temple were all filled with excitement. Only Long Haochen's comrades weren't able to smile at the situation. The demon god of clear vision Crocell was certainly killed by Haochen, but Haochen had yet to be transported back. If not for the fact that the connection to him through the soul-binding chains was still present, and that he didn't show more traces of receiving wounds, they'd be even more anxious. Now they could only keep waiting. After a short time of total unbelief, Paimon gradually calmed down. One can well imagine what a blow a demon god pillar's extinction was for the demons. At this time, even to make reprisals, this wasn't a good timing for attack. He could only give the order of retreat. Only then did Jiu Yonghao give the order to sweep through the battlefield, as the battle was temporarily over. But the demons and humans' enmity grew only deeper. Jiu Yonghao rushed in flight to Wang Yuanyuan's side, asking in low voice, "Is not back yet?" Wang Yuanyuan nodded, looking at the situation. Provisional Saint Knight head should be all right. Only, he could return at any time from now on, so we should wait here for his return. Their time of waiting lasted for a whole hour. Then the area where Long Haochen disappeared in flashing light lit up, and he appeared while carrying Crocell's corpse. Only then did the rest of the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad really cheer. Conveniently handing Crocell's corpse to Lin Xin, he respectfully greeted Jiu Yonghao, Provisional Saint Knight Head, 12th Golden Knight greets Temple Head. Jiu Yonghao let out a laugh, "As one of us, why are you standing on such ceremony? Do you think I can't recognize you because of this golden mask? I really didn't expect you to grow so fast. I really regret having not forcefully kept you here at that time." If he couldn't recognize this Saint Knight Head's identity after hearing Long Haochen's voice, he'd have lived over 100 years for nothing. Long Haochen replied a bit awkwardly, "Temple Head, you are regarding me too highly." Jiu Yonghao looked at the frozen corpse in Lin Xin's hands. "Did you really kill the demon god of clear vision by yourself?" Long Haochen showed a bitter smile. "It couldn't be considered a duel. Only, that's one of this junior's secrets." Jiu Yonghao replied, "Okay, let's forget about these matters for now. Just have a good rest in our warrior temple for now, and then I'll hold a welcoming reception for you guys." To say nothing about Long Haochen's original favors from the warrior temple, and how Jiu Yonghao regarded him as important, the huge contribution he made on this day in his capacity as Provisional Saint Knight Head made Jiu Yonghao receive him personally. Compared to the Mage Temple, the Warrior Temple welcomed Long Haochen's group a lot more warmly, arranging an excellently furnished residence for them. Jiu Yonghao even personally led the higher-ups from the Warrior Temple to hold a welcoming dinner a day after Long Haochen's rest. In practice, the mission mentioned in the letter from Long Qianying handed from Long Haochen to Jiu Yonghao was already complete. Killing a demon god of the 9th step such as Crocell brought him 1,000,000 contribution points. And Jiu Yonghao wasn't stingy, as Crocell's death was regarded very important by the Warrior Temple. He specially rewarded him with 500,000 contribution points. At the current time, even Long Haochen had lost the count of the contribution points stored inside his tile. But he could be certain that this was an astronomical number. Already 3 demon gods died one after another from his hands, and the blazing lion demon Andromalia's death was closely related with him. This could be called a matter of luck, but also a matter of strength. The death of one of the 72 demon gods in battle and without retrieval of his demon god crown would be a loss that can't be regained for 10 years. This was really a direct blow for the demons. After killing the demon god of clear vision, Long Haochen asked himself if the contribution he had made for the southeastern fort was sufficient, and concluded that they could immediately leave from the southeastern fort to keep gathering the others. But Long Haochen was not hasty at all, because he had another important matter to handle before that, and this matter would require focusing his time on recuperating first. Maybe it was because Crocell's death inflicted high damage on the demons, but they seemed to have ceased and didn't keep launching attacks. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. In these 7 days, Long Haochen came to experience the terror of the technical ability called Sacrifice. This ability gave him the strength to defeat Crocell, but similarly, he was weakened enormously and took 7 days to regain his vigor. Experience in fighting demon gods being extremely important, Long Haochen meticulously narrated to his team the whole process, including Zhong Fangfang in the group. Wang Yuanyuan informed him of how much Zhong Fangfang sacrificed for her. This captain, having lost his demon hunt squad, could be said to have gained the complete trust of Long Haochen's group. Zhong Fengfang's circumstances were not the same as Li Xin, as he was now all alone in this world. Being a knight, he could call himself carefree, so after discussion, Long Haochen decided to temporarily let him into the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad. Although it exceeded the Demon Hunt Squad's limitation, this was a choice Zhong Fengfang made on his own. Long Haochen just had to not report to the Demon Hunt Squad's mission tower about this special aspect of their team. He had no worries on the side of the Knight Temple either, as he was now a provisional Saint Knight head who could transfer a Temple Knight to follow him without needing to report to anyone. Is everyone ready? Long Haochen looked at the others standing beside him. At this time everyone was fully clad in martial attire. Having gone through a week of rest, Wang Yuan and Zhong Fengfang were already fully recovered. At this time, she was in great spirits and her cold murderous spirit vanished. Compared to 2 years ago, her cultivation, determination and body had all matured. Zhong Fengfang was rather introverted. His calm disposition was something Long Haochen himself concluded that he didn't have. After all, due to the difference in age, Zhong Fengfang had even more solid foundations. In response to Long Haochen's question, everyone nodded. At this time, they formed a circle around Long Haochen, prepared to be thrown into battle at any time. Long Haochen declared, Haoyue is about to undergo another evolution, very possibly giving birth to a 6th head. Although the previous evolutions went very smoothly, we still cannot lower our guard. Let's start. Confirming the others' acceptance, Long Haochen's eyes flickered in golden light, activating the eternal melody, and leading everyone inside the Tower of Eternity. Then he transported himself through his blood pact with Haoyue. That day when he battled the demon god of clear vision Crocel, Long Haochen found out that Haoyue was already on the verge of evolving. With the progress he made thanks to Crocel's demon god crown, he surely would have no trouble evolving. But at that time, he could sense from Haoyue's feelings that this time's evolution won't be as smooth as the time his 5th head came out. That's why Long Haochen temporarily stopped at the southeastern mountain pass, so that his strength recuperated totally. The first concern was to help Haoyue complete his evolution before planning their next move. Without need for an explanation from Long Haochen, his comrades understood the importance of Haoyue's evolution. To say nothing of the close relationship between Haoyue and Haochen, his ability to destroy demon god pillars alone was like a killing weapon in the hands of the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad. In a flash of purple light, Long Haochen reappeared in that world of darkness and flames. Haoyue was, like before, inside a cave, and Long Haochen's arrival made him extremely excited. His 5 large heads immediately expressed their affection, and the pair of huge wings on his back spread out. As his body became larger, Haoyue became visibly bolder and more powerful. Although his cultivation was merely at the peak of the 7th step, Long Haochen had the feeling that Haoyue's true force was far from something so simple. Haoyue, have you finished making your preparations? Long Haochen rubbed Haoyue's heads as he asked. The 5 heads led by Little Light nodded, full of excitement, but seemingly quite nervous. Be at ease, I will do my utmost to protect you well. Long Haochen comforted him. Haoyue transmitted a thought to Long Haochen, asking to be brought outside the cave to undergo his evolution. Although this was strange, Long Haochen didn't ask much. Haoyue must have his own reasons to do that. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.